The rotary snowplough was a machine used for snow removal on railroad tracks. A plough could weigh in at over 125,000 pounds with a cutting fan just over 2 meters in diameter. They were built to throw snow to either side of a rail track and could cut through deposits up to 3 meters deep. The plough was moved forward and backward in order to cut through the deep freshly fallen or avalanche debris snow. The Canadian Pacific Railway used these machines from the 1880s to almost halfway through the 20th century, although it's been recently reported in use on the Kansas Pacific Line, eastern Colorado in 1997. This story begins in Canada in 1869, moving to the United States where the plough was widely used by the Union Pacific Railway and to other parts of the world. Continuing its story throughout Canada from the White Pass in the Yukon, the Canada Pacific Railway certainly helped develop and build the country's economy in the late 1880s and early 1900s. Therefore, keeping the railroads open was very important. But this was a difficult task during typical northern winters of heavy snowfall. To help combat this, the rotary plough was invented by Canadian J.W. Elliott of Toronto, Ontario in 1869. He never built a working model or prototype. However, in 1870, another Canadian man, Orange Jull of Orangeville, Ontario, expanded on Elliott's original design. He built working models which he tested with sand and successfully patented these further developed designs within the same year. Jull later sold his design rights to the Leslie brothers in the US. The brothers formed the Rotary Steam Shovel Manufacturing Company in Paterson, New Jersey. The plough was used throughout Canada on the White Pass and Yukon route, in Newfoundland and through Rogers Pass. In 1911, heavier and stronger rotaries were delivered to the CPR and were used full-time up until the 1940s. The machine was also a hit across the border in the United States, helping to clear rail tracks from heavy falls of snow and frequent avalanches. The rotary was taken to Europe, where it was also used in countries such as Germany and Turkey. The rotary ploughs were used to open rail tracks after a snowslide and to keep them open during snowstorms. The machines were pushed into the snow, either freshly fallen snow or avalanche debris, by a locomotive. Usually all of the power was created by the boiler which was used to turn the rotary bull wheel that cut them through the snow to the side of the tracks. There was no locomotive power on the plough itself. Here we can see an example set up at White Pass. The rotary machine heads the train, followed by 2 locomotive engines. Usually the operator of the rotary communicated with the locomotive engineer and ground crew by whistle signals. Here is an example of how operations run at White Pass in the Yukon. The rotary pilot has 2 whistles he can use, a little peep whistle to signal the rotary engine, 1 peep for stop, 2 peeps for go ahead, 2 more peeps for give her all you got. The main whistle signals the pusher engines as well, 2 long whistles for go ahead, 1 long whistle for stop, and 3 short whistles for back up. The worst avalanche of all in Canadian history was at Rogers Pass on March 4, 1910. A train and rotary snowplough were working at clearing a slide which had come down on March 4th near shed number 17, near the summit of Rogers Pass, when another devastating slide came down. For many days it had been snowing heavily in the high mountains and at lower altitudes. Several gangs working in a deep cutting clearing the track could not escape when the second avalanche came down. The slide, over 600 feet long with a depth of 30 feet in some places, destroyed over 600 feet of shed. Bill LaChance, fireman of the rotary snowplough, was discovered in the slide by railroad master Johnny Anderson. He heard LaChance calling for help. Anderson told LaChance he didn't have long to live. However, Bill lived to an old age and recounted the incident.
Well, the snow got a hold of me, and what it didn't do to me, it just doubled me all up and rolled me. Now all the time I am in that, I don't get one breath. I dug myself out, and I thought this leg, my right leg, was broken.
After Anderson's discovery, bells rang in Revelstoke and Golden, calling men to help recover the bodies. 58 men, many from Japan, Europe and Canada, were killed in the March 4th slide. The towns of Revelstoke and Golden went into mourning for the victims of the worst slide in the history of Canada. Obviously, the plough had its drawbacks in that trees and rocks would have to be removed by hand. Crews would often have to dynamite heavy piles of avalanche debris, and for large avalanches, the removal gangs often proved more efficient. Due to rotaries breaking from debris, railroads went back to using the wedge snowplow pusher plough on line clearance around the 1940s. Other reasons for the switch were that labour costs were high, as the rotary fleet usually required at least 10 men. Maintenance for the rotary and 2 steam locomotives was high. As a result, the ploughs were abandoned by the CPR and other railways, only to be used to clear rail yard areas right through until the 1960s.